Today we're making a little pasta sauce here, doing my famous tomato sauce. So come on along, you're cooking with the king, and we'll get going. All right, cool. So we're going to get this tomato sauce recipe going, and a nice pan on the stove. Get that pan nice and hot, and we're going to start cooking up our aromatics. So I'm going to slice up all my onions, carrots, celeries, and get those cooking with some garlic and kind of get some good flavors going. Slicing up the celery. This is going to be just the first parts of it. You don't really have to worry about too much of the cut on it because it's going to get blended down with the stick blender at the end of it. So we'll just kind of get these going first. All right, great. So at this point, got in the pan my onions, carrots, and celeries. Getting those going. I like to use carrots in mine. This is just a classic mirepoix. So at this point, I got my onions, carrots, and celery kind of sauteing together with a little bit of olive oil. I like to put carrots in with this just because I like the sweetness that carrots offer to the tomato sauce, which can sometimes be a little bit acidic. Carrots help make it a little bit sweeter, bring out the sweetness in the sauce. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of green pepper to this sauce too. I've usually put these in a little bit more towards the end of the cooking process with the vegetables. I just like this little bit of soft spice that this adds to it. Kind of gives it that little bit of that sweetness of the peppers are kind of coming out too, and the spiciness of the sweet and spiciness of the peppers also kind of come out. It's all going to get cooked together. Just kind of rounding out the flavors. So you'll see these are all starting to kind of come together nicely. Onions, carrots, celery sauteing together, semi-translucent. I like to just get the mirepoix going first because they usually take a little bit longer. And then I'm going to add my garlic. Always use fresh garlic. Fresh garlic is the best. All of the fresh oils and fresh cut. Yep, it takes a little bit of extra time, but when it's all said and done, it makes a world of difference. Nice medium-high heat. Get all these vegetables cooking in together. Just let the flavors start to come together. I can already smell. It smells very nice. Nice, light, fresh, clean flavors. I added a little bit more carrot. You see, I wanted a nice carrot mix. They're all really coming together nicely, not overcooked, but still really nice and fresh. Just they're starting to loosen up. Most of the moisture in them has been absorbed into the cooking of the vegetables. You can see not a lot of moisture in the pan. So at this point, I'm going to let those keep cooking, and I'm going to introduce my meat. These are just Italian sausages from Publix. I just like the classic Italian sausages, and I pull them out of the case and just kind of drop them into the cooking pan here, and they will naturally start to release their oils, and those oils will all intercook with the vegetables, and then of course save the casing. And this is just enough for the two of us, and have a little bit of leftovers. But it's pretty easy just to pull this. You can use ground sausage if you wanted to. I just like the Italian sausages for this because it's got a lot of great flavoring all added together. Action. So got the meat in there now. Got the temperature up nice and hot. And I'm just going to kind of let this sausage cook in right here. At this point, you can also start to introduce a little bit of your red pepper flake. Red pepper flake is nice for a spice, and it likes to be cooked. So red pepper flake is good there. We'll kind of let these kind of come together. Alright, so we've also decided that this time we're going to use a little bit of some anchovies. I made a Caesar salad the other night. These are rolling anchovies with a little bit of caper in them. They've got some oil. I want a little bit of that oil, but not all of it. So I'm going to pop a couple of these guys out of there. And it's just going to give it a nice little earthiness to it. I'm going to let those anchovies, I created a little well right in the middle of the pan. And I've got the anchovies. I'm just going to let them fry up a little bit there, and that's just going to give it the balance of cool little Mediterranean style flavor. It smells delicious. All the flavors are starting to come off. The sausages is loosening up nicely. The flavors of the anchovies are coming off beautifully. And they're fried up there for a minute. And now I'm just going to kind of mix them all together. It smells absolutely beautiful. Perfect. We're just going to let this. This is still under pretty high heat. Medium high heat, and I'm just going to kind of let these flavors come together real quickly. I don't want to overcook this because it's going to cook a lot of time with the sauce. But now we can start getting our flavor packets together, and we'll start working on our flavoring. And always bay leaves are just beautiful for sauces. This is just a little pinch of dried oregano. I'm just going to start this with that. Splash just a little bit of salt. Some good black pepper. Good amount of good black pepper there. Your nose, obviously, your sense of smell is where they're going to tell you where it's at. So always make sure you're smelling that, but it smells pretty darn good as of right now. I'm going to pause it then. And go. Alright, so all the flavors have come together nicely. Bay leaves are starting to soften up themselves. Sausage has just completed its cooking process. It's still just there. And at this time I'm going to go ahead and introduce the tomato. Oh. And introduce the tomatoes. These are Nina's whole peeled Romas. Okay, that's the can with a little bit of H2O in there. If you had any other type of tomatoes that you wanted to interject, now would be the time. You can use fresh tomato in here if you like to, adding some fresh. If you wanted to do the canned or the stewed or the peeled, you can use pretty much any type of tomato sauce that you really want. But you'll see now here and I try not to bust open the Try not to bust open the tomatoes themselves because they're going to get blended. So I let them try to cook whole as much as I can first. And we'll bring the sauce up to heat and let this come together. Turn the temperature down just a little bit. Let it come up. And the whole thing will open up a little bit. And at this point in time, we've got in here the tomatoes and the onions and the peppers and the carrots, and as you can see the bell pepper in there, the sausage, and the whole tomatoes are stewing up nicely. Onions are still have some color to them, but they're turning translucent. This is exactly what you're looking for. You just kind of want to make sure that all your vegetables and all your meats and your tomatoes are all kind of nicely coming together, and we're just going to kind of let this stew. I'm going to turn the heat down to a low, and we're just going to kind of let this stew here, reducing a little bit of moisture coming out of it, and we're just going to let it tighten up and kind of come together and let those flavors kind of meld together for, you know, a little half hour or so. The tomato sauce has been cooking for about 25 minutes, half hour. Done on the stove. As you can see, it's got some nice caramelization going on with the sauce right there. You see how it's bubbling up. All that is nice, intense flavors and aromas. This is cooking real nicely. It's been simmering here for a half hour, and I'm about ready to puree it. Time to go ahead and bust out the stick blender. Oh, also you want to grab in here before you do that though. You got to get out these your bay leaves. You don't necessarily want to blend your bay leaves. They just don't like to be blended. They're very fibrous. And you know, you put 3 in. There's the 3. And now you want to go ahead and bust out. I got one of these Cuisinart stick blenders. This one's an old one, but they work. So you just want to kind of bring this in and move it around on top of the vegetables and slowly go around. This is a long process. I don't try to do it all in one shot. Just kind of keep the blender moving and keep pressing down on the vegetables. You can feel it when you get them. Some of them do a little bit faster job. This one takes a while now. I've used this quite a bit. I just kind of stir it like you'd stir a spoon in there, and lifting it and jumping it around, and then just kind of keep stirring it up. Once you've got all the big chunks done, all the big chunks are out of it, now you're just kind of stirring it up and further tightening it down, incorporating all those flavors. Smells great. That's it. All right, it's looking good. It's coming together nicely now. It's been sitting on, after I pureed it, it's been sitting on for another, 10 minutes or so. And flavors are looking good. It smells delicious. And now it's time to start the seasoning process. So we're going to just take a little taste of it ourselves. It's delicious. Nice, ripe flavors. I'm going to put the bay leaves back in. I'm going to add my basil. I'm going to add some thyme. Let it come together. I think it needs a little bit more salt. Definitely needs some pepper. Cut it into a chiffonade, which are these nice little ribbons of basil. And these nice ribbons of basil. I don't like to add basil too early in the cooking process because basil, I think, after it cooks in too deep, it turns a little bitter. I'll put the bay leaves back in. Here's some basil. And here's some fresh thyme that we've just dried down. Nice little pinch of fresh thyme. Some basil. So these are the basil and the bay leaves and the salt and pepper. Just let this come in together. It's got a nice consistency. If it was too thick, you could add a little bit of water to it. If it's too thin, you can just keep cooking this and it'll kind of naturally thicken as it reduces. The bay leaves are in there, so we'll let that kind of come together. Taste it again for seasoning. Wow, delicious. I guess this whole process now has taken an hour up to this point, and we're just going to go ahead and let this cook for about another half hour, and turn it down to low. If you like where it's at, turn it down to low, put the lid on it, and just let it sit there on low for an hour. Most of the moisture that comes off it will be reabsorbed because you got the lid on it, and the flavors will just kind of stew together for another hour or so, and that sauce is ready to go. Sauce has been stewing for an hour now after it's been blended. Smells wonderful, and it's pretty much done. It's always better the next day, and you know, anything you can do to save it for the next use. We've got some eggplant parmesan that we're gonna be going into. I always finish my sauces with just a little drizzle of fresh olive oil. I think it kind of adds to the sheen of the sauce, and it also kind of helps just kind of helps the flavors kind of come together. Come on in, take a look at it. You can kind of see how that nice little olive oil adds just a nice color and really incorporates well with all the vegetables and everything in there, and it's just a really nice clean sauce. Let me go ahead and give it a taste. Nice, smooth. It's got the little ribbons of basil in it that aren't overcooked. It's absolutely delicious. Keep in mind that the bay leaves are still in here, so you can leave them in there. No problem with the bay leaves being in there. Just pull them out before you eat them or as you use this to serve. But this sauce is done. That's it. Thanks for coming. Appreciate your time here. Once again, you're cooking with the king, making my famous tomato sauce a la mode.